Well, if the rumors are true, rest in peace to the AEW Jazzwares line. Because rumors came out this past weekend that might change the industry as far as wrestling figures. Anyway, get this without this freaking blinking out, because last time it blinked out. Oh, this is Mr. Hornby 3. This is the Mr. Hornby 3 show, and today, let me get this over here. Alright, here we go. And today we are talking about the end of the AEW Jazzware lines. If this rumor's true, people claim this guy's credible and he's like been right about Wrestling Figure News. Says he's got sources. He's got sources within Jazzwares that confirm he's telling the truth about the AEW figures being done with Jazzwares anyway. So yeah, I had to adjust the camera a little. So we're going to talk about, if this is true, some possible other landing places for AEW to have to get their wrestling figures made. And you know, the first company I'm going to talk about, of course, with the rumor of what happened last year. Now, since then we ain't heard nothing since about it, but I think it is legit. Let's talk about the first company I think could, should, and would possibly be willing to take on the AEW line is, of course, our friends at Toy Biz. Now, if Toy Biz gets the license, if the Toy Biz is the one that's going to take the license to the AEW figures, first of all, they got to change the style of figures they're going to do. They can't do the figures like they did with these and the TNA figures years ago when TNA came out with some wrestling figures. They were under the Toy Biz banner too, and WCW also was under the Toy Biz banner. But I think, seriously, if they want to take a chance on getting put back on the map with their return, and that Toy Biz would be the perfect place for new AEW figures. Like I said, they'd have to make a different body style. They'd have to make, they'd have to do them different than what they did with the WCW and TNA figures, though. They'd have to change the style of figures they make from TNA to WCW. Because, a lot of people want the AEW figures to scale with the WWE Mattel figures. And you know what? Jazzwares kind of did that a little bit. But there were some wrestlers that were way bigger than they should have been, like height-wise, not like size-wise or anything like that. But there were some wrestlers that were 10 times bigger than what they, like the Jake Hager you see. He was way taller than what he really is in AEW, so. Now, I think also AEW figures need to be, treated more like a big deal with whatever company takes them next. And like I said, I think Toy Biz, not only could Toy Biz take them and possibly get a chance to get back on the map with that, but Toy Biz could also make the AEW figures the cornerstone figures of their big return. And you know what? I think that'd be perfect. I mean, if they do what they did with the Marvel Legends before Hasbro bought the rights to Marvel Legends, then yeah, I could see AEW figures, getting that treatment like they did with the Toy Biz Marvel Legend figures. Because the Toy Biz Marvel Legend figures were really good. I'll even say, I think there's points where the Toy Biz Marvel Legend figures have been better than some of the Hasbro Marvel Legend figures. But, who knows? Another thing Toy Biz is going to have to do if they do take the AEW license, they got to put detail into the belts and all that. Not only change the body styles and that you want to make these figures with, but you need to put details in the belts. Now, they did that with the TNA line when they had the TNA line figures, you know. All the frickin' belts that came out through the TNA line were, you know, very detailed. So that's what they need to do with the AEW figures if they do take the rights to AEW. Because, you know, and like I said, this, in 2025, this style of figures are not going to fly. That's why when they had the rights to TNA, Jakks was making the WWE figures, and you know what? Jakks WWE figures were amazing and all that, but, you know, this style did not fly then because, you know, Jakks had made a whole new style of wrestling figures that, you know, people loved. Everybody loves the Jakks WWE figures. And you know, the Jakks TNA figures were pretty good too, but that by that point that frickin' style had been outdated. So, you know, it was in the same boot. But yeah, you know, maybe you could try this formula, but you'd have to frickin' upscale the figures and all that. You know, because they gotta at least be around the frickin' scale that these frickin' Jazzware figures are, because I think that's what people would be interested in buying the AEW figures for, is if they had, you know, a better formula. And though the Jazzware formula was kind of a, you know, was a good formula, it still has some flaws to it. So yeah, like I just mentioned, sizing issues and all that stuff. But yeah, if we're going to do new AEW figures, Toy Biz, then you guys need to, you know, change the formula like you did with the Marvel Legends back in the late 90s, early 2000s, before Hasbro bought the rights to them. So yeah, that's the first company. I think Toy Biz would treat the AEW figures more seriously than probably something like Jazzwares or something would do, because, you know, that could be their cornerstone of their return, is they're going to be making the new AEW figures. Next up, now let's go to our friends at Jakks Pacific. Now look, I don't know if Jakks is interested in making wrestling figures or not. I don't know if they are interested in, you know, trying to get in the collector market with wrestling figures and that. But if they do, Jakks, if you guys get the rights to the AEW figures like you did with the WWE and TNA figures, you're also going to have to change your formula as well. And look, man, I think the Jakks figures and that were great at the time they came out and all that, but you can't use this formula no more, because people will say, well, it's outdated. This formula's outdated, blah, 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 blah. You know, and Jakks, I'm pretty sure they realized that. And like I said, you have to get some kind of formula the way the Jazzware figures were made through, the way the AEW figures were made through Jazzwares. Something similar to Mattel, but different. Also, I don't think these formulas will work either. Now, look, you could probably use these formulas, but I think what you need to do is scale the figures down a little bit in size, like to the Jazzware size. And you know what? I think if you use like these, you know, parts, torso parts and that, and you combined it with, you know, something like the R3 figures that you came out with years ago when you were doing WWE figures, I think that would be a perfect blend to go well with the new AEW Jazzware figures. But yeah, you have to choose. Now look, I wouldn't mind this formula. I think this formula is great and perfect. And look how big Kevin Nash's arm looks. Look at AJ Styles' arms. They're super jacked. He wasn't super jacked at that time, but you know, he's super jacked now. But he wasn't jacked at that time. So yeah, I mean, this formula would not work Maybe on bigger guys like Wardlow and that, and Powerhouse Hobbs, but it's not going to work on the smaller guys like MJF or, you know, Kenny Omega or any of that. But, you know, honestly, I think if you went with this formula and you tweaked it a bit, it would probably be a perfect formula. If they do that. But, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see because, you know, I think the way the Jazzware AEW figures are now, they look fine. They look good. They're not perfect. Yeah, they still got pins. Yeah, there's scaling issues with them. But, you know what? As far as making the muscle tone and all that, they look pretty good. Not only that, if Jakks did get the rights, because one of my biggest gripes with Jakks when they had the WWE figures and the TNA figures, first of all, took them forever to update belts, like figure belts and that. And when they did bring out the figure belts, they did not put detail into them. They didn't paint them. They didn't freaking do nothing. Now, yeah, they did that with the Winged Eagle, and some of the versions of the Big Gold they made, they painted the red diamonds or the red rubies on the freaking Jakks Big Gold belts. But most of the time, they didn't really put no collar to the belts, and that's, you know, something that you really need to do with this day and age with wrestling figures and their belts. I mean, look at this. You know, look at the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. By the way, currently the best World Championship out there. Better than the WWE Championship. It's better than the TNA Championship. It's better than the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. It's better than New Japan's Championship. It's better than the Ring of Honor belts that AEW owns the rights to as well. And, you know, it's just a beautiful belt. And you know what? There's a bunch of details in the Jazzware AEW belt. And when they come out with the new one with Samoa Joe, which I think is already out. But I ain't seen that new wave yet in stores with Samoa Joe with that new version of the AEW World Championship. Because, yeah, it was pretty much the same, but they switched the side plate stuff. But, yeah, kind of like how WWE does with their side plates now, like making it for the person who, you know, is currently holding the belt. But, yeah, I mean, and heck, I haven't seen a nice World Championship like that since the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. And before that, it was the Big Gold belt, the WCW version. And then it was the Attitude Era belt. Now people say, well, what about the Winged Eagle? Yeah, I like the Winged Eagle. It's okay and all, but I loved the Attitude Era belt a lot better. If you look over my collection, yeah, I have two versions of the Winged Eagle, but, you know, but Attitude belt is my favorite belt. You know, one of the versions of the Winged Eagle belt I got is not in the front of my shelf over there. But the two Attitude belts I got in my collection is. Yeah, so you gotta make the detail, you gotta do the scaling better, and you know, it would just be nice if Jazzwares is done with AEW figures. You know, whoever buys the company just gets the rights to these molds too, these style of bodies or whatever, and maybe they could tweak them and fix them a bit. And make them a little bit better. Like making them pinless. Or, you know, fixing some of the freaking tanning issues on some of the figures that they made. And that. Yeah, so we'll have to see. But, you know, now let's go to another company that might possibly get them. And they could. I mean, if they're wanting to get back into the wrestling figure market. But then again, Jackson Toy Biz has already been in the wrestling figure market too, so. But let's talk about Hasbro. Now, if Hasbro wanted to get back in to, you know, wrestling figure marketing, they probably could. And you know what? I think if Hasbro made the AEW figures, the AEW figures would be at a better place than what they are now with Jazzwares. Now, would Hasbro treat AEW figures the same way they treat their G.I. Joe Classified figures, their Transformers, They're crappy Star Wars figures, so they don't give a crap about Star Wars figures. Never really cared for Star Wars figures, even as a kid. I was not a big fan of. I liked the movies, but I was not a fan of the Star Wars figures ever. But yeah. And what's the other brand? Oh, fudge. Marvel Legends, yeah. If they treat AEW figures the way they treat Marvel Legends and their G.I. Joe Classified figures, which I think is the best G.I. Joe figures I've ever seen. You know, there's some issues with some of them, but then there's a lot of great things about a lot of them. You know, and the issues with, you know, taking characters that we really want and making them Comic-Con exclusives, which is ridiculous. You know, but maybe we'll get that figure in a retro card back. But we'll see. But they treat them like that, the AEW figures will be in a good place, because AEW figures would be, you know, getting the same love that Marvel Legends and G.I. Joe Classified get. Alright. Now, or they could treat the AEW figures the way they treat the Ghostbuster figures, because they got the respect to Ghostbuster figures, and the way they treat the Power Ranger figures. So, and I think Hasbro will be good at detailing the belts in that too. And probably giving them proper sizes to some of the belts, because one thing, another thing that was wrong with Jazzwares, you know, AEW figures, it was also Jack's problem too, is some belts were bigger than they should have been. I mean, we get this issue with Mattel too. Mattel still has giant cruiserweight titles out there, WCW cruiserweight titles out there. They still have giant WCW United States titles. They still have giant Hulk Hogan 86 championships. And then on the other end, the WCW 91 and 94 belt is somewhat smaller than the freaking Winged Eagle belt. And the Winged Eagle belt was smaller than the WCW 91 and 94 championship. At least they did a good job with some of the other WCW belts they've made, like the tag team titles and the big gold belt. WCW version of the big gold belt, but gee whiz. Hey, you know, also, you know, they've done good with the current WWE Championship belts. They've made a lot of the good versions of those belts. But when it comes to classic belts, they have not done good. And I think, you know, one of the problems with Jazzwares, they made some of the belts bigger than what they should have been. And that, like, one of the freaking belts that I think they really screwed up on. TNT title. It's like way bigger than what it is on TV. It's like way bigger. It's almost the same size as the AEW World Championship, which is crazy, but you know. You look at it in figure form, yeah. You know. But, you know, I think Hasbro, if they did take the AEW license, they'd probably do a good job on it if they really gave a crap about the, you know, AEW figure line. You know, if they want to make it as profitable as their Marvel Legends or, you know, G.I. Joe Classified or, you know, other figures like Hasbro, or like, you know, G.I. Joe Classified, Marvel Legends, and, you know. But we'll have to wait and see on that too. But I don't think Hasbro would do it, because Hasbro is not interested in doing wrestling figures right now. I don't think they're interested in doing too many figures these days. They got freaking, they're still gonna do Marvel Legends, they're still gonna do Classified figures. They did reveal some G.I. Joe or some Ghostbuster figures. But outside of that, they ain't done too much with, you know, figures as far as the thing. Now, a name a lot of people also might do it, and I don't think he will, because, you know, even if he does, even if he is losing the CC license, yeah, I don't think frickin' McFarlane Toys is gonna frickin' have AEW figures in his line. Now, that'd be cool if he did, but I don't think he will. And they wouldn't scale with the WWE figures anyway. And that's what a lot of people want. They want their AEW figures to scale with the WWE figures. They wanted the WCW figures to scale with the WWE figures so they could do face-offs and all that, but that never happened either. So, yeah, we'll have to see. They probably want the TNA figures to scale with the WWE figures so they can face off, and that never happened. But, yeah, we'll have to see. But I don't think McFarlane will do it. Now, look. Maybe to piss off maybe to piss off, Mattel for getting the DC license. Maybe Hasbro would take a chance on the AEW figure license just to piss off Hasbro or just to piss off Mattel. They might do that. Like, oh yeah, let's make these AEW figures. Let's, competition to their top selling figures is their WWE figures. How about we get the AEW figures? So maybe Hasbro would be interested in getting back into the wrestling figure market. And that would be a total wild card if they did. McFarlane, I don't think there's a chance with it. Now here's one that a lot of people think would probably do it. But I don't know because they got deals with Mattel and, Mattel might get pissed off at them and that. But people are talking about Ringside Collectibles making AEW figures. Now look, it's one thing when they make independent figures. That's one thing. But if you're going to make the competition to WWE Mattel figures, that's a totally different thing. And I don't think Mattel would be too happy with that. And I don't want to have to go to stupid Mattel Creations to get WWE figures. So not only do I don't think that will happen because of Ringside's deal with WWE, but I hope that don't happen because I don't want to go to Mattel Creations, Amazon, and all that crap to get WWE figures if I have to go to those websites to get them. The best website to get you your WWE figures and all that stuff is Ringside Collectibles. Ringside Collectibles, that's how I got my Great Muta. On the frickin' Target store, it's like 40 something bucks, close to 50. On the Walmart store, it's about 50 bucks or higher. eBay and all that, it's a lot of money. So, but Ringside Collectibles, with one of their sales, I forgot which sale it was, they had it for 28 something. Now, yeah, it was still close to 40, but that's because of shipping and handling and that. It was 28 something when I bought it on sale. And I got my Muta that way. Because, honestly, I did not want to deal with nonsense of frickin' paying that much money to Walmart or Target or eBay or Amazon or any of that stuff. I had to go to eBay earlier this year to get the Lex Luger figure because of the fact that frickin' it was just way too high on Walmart at the time. Couldn't find it in any of the Walmart stores, and you still can't find it. And then, like, if you seen the short I did last Sunday when I frickin' showed off the that there was a Hangman Page in there instead of a frickin' Lex Luger figure. And they took the belts, they took the Lex Luger, they left the two head accessories. I think they left the towel. They didn't even add an AEW Championship belt in there with the frickin' Hangman Page. So, that's just crazy. But, yeah. So I don't think Ringside will do it because of their deal with WWE and Mattel. And not only that, I don't want to deal with Mattel Creations. After the Rick Rude debacle earlier this year, I don't want to deal with Mattel Creations again. That's why I'm waiting for Mattel Creations stuff that goes on Mattel Creations, and then they go over to Ringside. I'll wait till it goes on Ringside to get it, because I'd rather get it from them than frickin' get things screwed up like with frickin' Mattel Creations, like with the Rick Rude earlier this year with the WCW Championship. I'll throw a wildfire one out here, and I don't think they will, but you know what? What if people that make the Street Fighter figures, Jada Toys, what if Jada Toys made AEW figures? I mean, they've done great on the Street Fighter figures. I think a lot of people love the Street Fighter figures. I don't think anybody's liked Street Fighter figures better outside of the frickin' Storm Collectible ones than people do with the Jada Toy Street Fighter figures. So maybe AEW, maybe frickin' Jada Toys will take a chance on AEW figures. Imagine that. And the funny thing is, WWE right now, Mattel's doing the Street Fighter crossover with the frickin' And not only that, a lot of WWE wrestlers are in the freaking new Street Fighter movie. But imagine if Jada Toys made it. They'd probably make the AEW figures good. They'd probably treat AEW figures the same way they treat the Street Fighter figures. That could be a possibility. You never know. I would say places like NECA and that, but I don't think NECA would do that. They only make mainly collector figures, and, you know, wrestling figures are meant to be played with and collected in some ways. But, yeah. I don't think they'd freaking, I don't think AEW, I don't think, you know, NECA would make them. I mean, you could get something like Storm Collectibles or something, but that would be too pricey. Yeah, AEW figures would be in the same place they are now if they were freaking made by Storm Collectibles. So, you know, that's just a couple of random ones. I don't think any of those companies would be interested in making wrestling figures. But, you know, imagine, though, the more and more I think about it, I think the top 3 places I would like to see the AEW figures line go to would either be Jada Toys, after just talking about it. But Jada Toys, they make video game figures, and that's really all they got outside of that. Outside of that, they really ain't got nothing but video game toys. Imagine them having AEW figures. That would be pretty cool. And they probably do details on the belts, make the figures, and they probably make them the same way the Jazzware figures were made. Who knows? But yeah, Jada Toys, Hasbro, I think, because it would put AEW in a really good place if they were done by Hasbro. Would Hasbro take the line as serious as they would if they had WWE or something like that? I don't know. And then, you know, Toy Biz. And if Toy Biz wants to make a splash in their return, some people might not think it's a splash, but putting out AEW figures, having lights to AEW, making that the cornerstone of your freaking toy business would probably help AEW figures and Toy Biz if Toy Biz wanted to go back to it. But yeah, you know, Jakks, I wouldn't mind Jakks doing them, but I don't want them doing the same formula that they did for the WWE and TNA figures. They'd have to come up with a new formula. And I don't want to see no independent wrestling companies doing it, so I don't think that would be so stupid by AEW to go to independent wrestling figure company. It might be smart right now for the right now and then, but for the future, I don't think it would be too smart. Because, you know, the independent wrestling figures, you could only get those at specialty stores. And if you're wanting to compete with Mattel and WWE, you gotta have a big toy company back in the fact of making the AEW figures. So we'll have to see. I don't know. I think though the 3 main ones I'd like to see it either be Toy Biz, Hasbro, or Jada Toys. Even though I don't think Jada Toys is interested in making wrestling figures, but you never know. I mean, like I said, outside of video game figures, what else does frickin' Jada Toys have that can really get people buying their stuff? Not that really. AEW figures would probably work out for Jada Toys. But yeah, the Hasbro and Toy Biz ones are interesting as well. We'll have to see. You guys let me know in the comments what you think. But right now, this is also all rumor. It's all rumor. Nothing is confirmed. And, you know, despite the fact this person had someone else comment and say, well, this guy's really reputable, so he usually gets them right, blah, 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 and all that jibber jabber. He's usually right about this stuff. He's got sources and all that. I ain't gonna believe nothing until AEW or Jazzwares comes out and says something and confirms it themselves. And, you know, that's my big issue with all these other, you know, people that's talked about this, like My Damn Toys and, you know, Big Hill, and a couple other wrestling figure channels I've seen that have videos about this. I didn't watch any of them. I watched My Damn Toys', but, you know, they already believe it. Just because someone in a comment said, well, he is usually spot on with stuff, and he is usually right, and he's got all these sources. But I'm taking the Kyle Peterson route. Until AEW or Jazzwares comes out and says something to partnership, especially with the fact all the stuff that Jazzwares showed off for AEW coming out, and at least the next year, it's kind of hard to believe that now all of a sudden they're like, oh no, we ain't selling AEW figures no more. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not going to buy anything until Jazzwares or AEW say something. When Jazzwares or AEW says something, that's when I'll say, okay, yes, the Jazzwares AEW line is dead. Till then, I'm not buying nothing until I hear it officially from either Jazzwares or AEW. I mean, they got all the stuff coming from the... They even freaking made a Volt series. The Jazzwares Volt for the AEW figures. They've mostly been selling Ring of Honor stuff in that. And well, they've had some exclusive AEW figures. But, I mean, until they confirm that they're no longer doing it, I'm not buying nothing. I think all these people out there that are buying this already either wanted the line to die or they're just stupid. And I don't think they're stupid. Some of them I don't think are stupid. Some of them might be stupid. Who knows? You know, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some idiot out there that's got such a hate boner for AEW the way Bring the Juice has a hate boner for freaking Quiddy Pay. If somebody out there had a hate boner for AEW, it's celebrating that AEW Jazzwares might not be a thing anymore. But you know what? Like I said, until I hear something official, I am not confirming nothing. If I hear it on Toy News International, or if I hear AEW or Jazzwares saying it, that's when I'll confirm it. Till then, I'm not buying nothing. So, yeah. And yeah, it was fun to pick out some of these companies that might do the AEW figures after Jazzwares. But that does not mean Jazzwares is done making AEW figures. Until AEW or Jazzwares says something, nothing is true. That's my opinion. You guys let me know in the comments which company you think would take a chance on the AEW license. In the comments below, if Jazzwares is done with AEW figures, or if AEW is done with Jazzwares. Let me know in the comments and all that stuff. And you know, I think one of the big problems people have with the freaking AEW figures, maybe the aesthetics. You know, I mean, especially with the pin joints and all that. I think a lot of people complain about that. The scaling issue, yeah, people complain about that. And I keep picking up the Wardlow figure. You know, but... You know, honestly, I think they look fine the way they are. I don't care about pinless stuff. I mean, and all the trouble we've had with pinless legs and that with the Mattel WWE figures, yeah, that's, I don't know. I don't mind if they got pins in them or not. But I think that's one of the things. And yeah, some of the tans aren't perfect. Like Wardlow, he should look more tan than that. You know, maybe look a little bit bigger than what he looks in this figure, but hey. Yeah. We'll have to wait and see. But until AEW or Jazzwares says something, I'm not believing anything. If they do say something, then I'll say yes. Hopefully one of these other companies I talked about in this video picks it up. But you guys, like I said, let me know what you guys think. Who do you think will take a chance on the AEW line if Jazzwares is done with it? Let me know in the comments. Like this video, subscribe for more. Follow my Facebook fan page, Mr. Hornsby 83 Show. Follow my Facebook business page, Trigen Toys. I sell vintage toys and current toys. And, you know, catch you guys later until Wednesday when we talk about, well, I'll be on tomorrow for a wrestling figure build to Halloween Figure Havoc. But, you know, then Wednesday I'm going to talk about which freaking version of it is scarier. The original version, not which one's better, which one's scarier, the original version or the new version. And this is all because of my friend Heavy Metal Turtle. You know, so you guys can make your comments and all that on that video this freaking Wednesday. Tomorrow, final build to Halloween Figure Havoc Part 1. And then next week, final big to Halloween Figure Havoc Part 2. We'll have a contract signing tomorrow, so yeah. Trying to figure out which match I'm going to do the contract signing for. I'll figure it out by the end of the day. Anyway, catch you guys later. Peace out.